Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video on the channel. Today I'm doing another updated championship table prediction. You know I love my championship predictions, guys. Get yours down below in the comments. Always drop a like and subscribe. I thought now we've made it to the international break, we've got a bit of time to assess what we've seen so far. A lot can change because we've not even done a quarter of the season yet, but I thought we could have a look at what I think the table could look like come the end of the season based on what we've seen so far. We've got my bottom three, the clubs I think that'll stay up with heads above water, middle for the teams that aren't going up or down, the chasing packs of teams that could make the playoffs, the teams that'll be in the playoff mix, so 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, and my sort of top 3 or 4 favourites so far this season. Let's start at the bottom. I'm going to go for Hull City. Now, Hull City aren't in the bottom 3 at the moment, but they're going that way. Coming into the international break, they've lost 4 in a row. They've conceded the most goals. Their expected goals is terrible. Okay, maybe a couple of injuries there, but I still think Hull City are not performing as many people thought they would this season. They were always a dark horse coming into this season, and a lot of people thought they'd be a dark horse in a positive way, maybe like charge up the table, but so far I've got to say Hull City not been great. Yes, they started with a couple of wins. Yes, they beat my team Coventry, but defensively, I think they look quite bad. I'm going to say Hull City could go down. Next up, I'm going to go for Blackpool. This one hurts me because I like Blackpool. I think Blackpool are a decent club, but so far this season doesn't look great. No, they're not in the bottom 3 at the moment. And yes, they've put in some spirited performances. But coming into this, they've lost 3 of their last 4. They've conceded 3 goals in 3 occasions of the last 6 games. So defensively, quite bad as well. They're capable of staying up, but I think they could have a season where maybe heads above water is probably the best at this point in time. Also in my bottom 3, I'm going to go for Cardiff. Now, this one could change in a matter of weeks. They've just got rid of the manager. Things could change. But at the time of recording this, they've won 1 in their last 7. They've just lost to Huddersfield, who look quite poor at the moment. And yes, they're managerless. Things could turn around, but they're not scoring a lot. They're not creating a lot. The expected goal says they could be a little bit higher than where they are, but ultimately they look like they're going to be a club battling in the bottom 6 or 7 until things really take a turn for the better. I think Cardiff City are going to complete my bottom 3. This is really hard, guys. You try predicting this bottom 3 because I'm finding it really hard. Heads above water, I'm going to go for Huddersfield. I think Huddersfield will survive. They've just got rid of their manager and they've won. The expected goal says they are deserving to be in the bottom 5 or 6 based on how they're playing. Yes, they've been unlucky in a couple of games. I think they could just stay up. I think there's enough quality there for them to get out of this. They've got a decent fan base. I think Huddersfield could just get over the line, but I think we're looking at a not so good season after last year, I must say. I'm not convinced. They've only kept 1 clean sheet in 9 games, and that was the one at the weekend when they beat Cardiff. I think they could just get out of this, but they're in a bit of a precarious situation. Next up, I'm going to go for Blues, Birmingham City. I think Birmingham City will be safe. I think a lot of people at the start of the season put them to go down. Yes, they're not a million miles above it, but so far, especially in the last 3 games, they look alright, to be honest, don't they? A couple of wins. I did get to see them against Coventry. Got to say, it wasn't a great game from either side. If anything, Birmingham did have the better chances in that game to go and win it. I think they'll be okay. They know this division. I actually quite respect Eustace. I think he's a good manager. With Deeney and Hogan, they've got enough goal power there. I think Birmingham will keep their heads above water. I'd like to see them push towards middle, but I'm going to put them in heads above water for now. The last club I'm going to put in there is Rotherham. Now, Rotherham so far have been really good, I must say. And for me to put them in heads above water is quite a statement, because at the start of the season, everyone wrote them off. Everyone wrote them off. And everyone, including myself, has to put our hands up and say, we've been wrong. Now, so far, they've been good. 9 games, only lost 1. Things can turn very quickly in the Championship, and they've got big weeks coming. I think they play Burnley and Norwich in the next month or so. So it could get tricky. Ultimately, they've done what they needed to do so far. As a team that's coming up, just wanting to stay up, they've put points on the board. They're keeping themselves above water. To be honest, they're in the top half, aren't they? I know it might look harsh me putting them down here. I think they will have a little fall off, but ultimately the quality there, they just look too solid to go down compared to some of the teams down there. I think Rotherham are going to be all right. Next up in the middle, I'll go for Coventry next. I don't want to push Coventry too high up the table. I think Coventry are probably the trickiest team to predict at the moment because we have played the least amount of games. We've only played one home game. Look, there's some Coventry fans that are feeling negative. Some Coventry fans in my recent video said they think we'll go down. There's some that still think we might get into the top half. I'll go in the middle and say we could finish around 15th, 16th. Ultimately, we can finish higher. We can finish low. Of course we can. We've got the capability to finish higher. We've got plenty of good players. Gyökeres, Godden, O'Hare's coming back. But the negatives are our squad is thin. I've got to say, it's probably the worst summer we've had under Mark Robins in terms of business. I'm not blaming him. Maybe his hands were tied. Maybe there wasn't much money. We did hold on to key players, but the recruitment was just, what, did we sign 3 players or something? I think Coventry could be in trouble if we get a few key injuries. But until then, I think when we get the home games going and get a bit of rhythm, I think we'll climb away from the bottom 6. But I don't know how much higher we'll climb than that. I'll put Coventry in the middle. Next up, I'll go for Preston North End. Really good defensive team. Going forwards, they're not scoring a lot. The expected goals is crazy for Preston because you look at how many they've scored and how many conceded, and you think, well, they must be really boring games. But it's not actually showing that. They could be scoring more. They could be conceding more. Ultimately, they're just a bit of an anomaly at this point. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the bottom 3. I think Preston look all right. Against Coventry, I think they're probably the better team, to be fair. They snatched it. And they've got that about them, haven't they? They're a solid championship team. They'll get the points that they need. But will they make the top 6? I don't think they're going to be up there. Next up, Blackburn Rovers for me. Maybe the biggest wild card so far based on their start. Ultimately, I've said there's no grey areas with Blackburn. Won 5, lost 5. And as long as they're doing that, they're going to well be clear of the bottom 3 and maybe always be within touching distance of the playoffs. So you could say Blackburn could be in the chasing pack. But based on their expected goals, they're overperforming a little bit. I won't be too harsh because they are doing well. I think they've got a good squad, some good players, and doing all right under the new manager. I think they'll be middle, could be higher. Last up in the middle section, I'll go for Wigan Athletic. I think they're looking quite good in the Championship for a newly promoted team. They've climatised. To be honest, all 3 newly promoted teams have climatised quite well. And you can see why they won League One. Some of their performances so far have been dogged. They're not panning teams, but they're grinding out some crucial wins. Obviously, they're not unbeaten. They've lost games like most recently against Reading. But the wins away at Luton and Huddersfield are results that make me think they'll be fine. I think Wigan will be around the middle. They look quite good. They look solid. I think it's a consolidation season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them push on in the following season. Next then, we'll move on to the chasing pack, which I think are the teams that have got a chance of the playoffs, but albeit an outside chance. I'll start with Swansea City. Swansea look good on the eye, and especially in their most recent game, they swept the floor with Hull City. It's just about consistency, isn't it? And really trying to get a good run together, because I think they were a bit of a dark horse coming into this season, but they could also swing the other way. I feel like with Swansea City, you just don't know what you're going to get. I find they're probably one of the hardest teams to predict in the league. On the expected goals, they're looking good. They should be higher in the table based on how they're playing so far. So I think they could be in the chasing pack. I think Swansea City are a team I'll keep my eye on. I don't think they're a favourite to make the top 6, but I wouldn't rule them out of it. Next up, we're going to go for Stoke City. I think Stoke City, for me, have looked pretty good so far. Decent couple results coming into this international break. Yes, they've changed the manager, and we're yet to really see him have a proper go at loads of games. But so far, it's looked okay. I think Stoke City won't be a million miles from the playoffs. Will they get in there? I wouldn't say they're a favourite, but the squad's all right. With the right manager now, I think they could be closer than they would have been before. I think Stoke City are another team I'll keep my eye on. Next up, I'm going to go for Millwall, who so far haven't been terrible, but maybe not quite living up to some expectations. I think because they've been so good in recent years, everyone expects Millwall to be right in that top 10. They're not at the moment, but they're not a million miles from it. Some decent performances, some wins, they're just getting over the line. I feel like so far Millwall have left a little bit to be desired. I don't think they've really got going yet, so I'd just keep an eye on them. They're a team that when they hit a good run, especially at home, they seem to be a decent team. I think they could be in the question, so wouldn't rule them out of it yet. Next up, to my surprise, is Reading. They are really doing well at the moment. I know they're actually in the playoff mix. I think we could see a little fall from them, and that's no disrespect. I do like Reading. I just don't know if they've got the longevity to do it over a season. But they could put themselves in a position where come March and April, they're not a million miles away from the playoffs, so they're still in a chasing pack, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put Reading there. I think so far they've looked really good. Probably not, I wouldn't say overperforming, because on the expected goals they look like a top 10 side at least. But the biggest surprise, I've got to say, because a lot of people didn't fancy them, so fair play to Reading. Last up then in the chasing pack, I'm going to go for Middlesbrough. Now Middlesbrough so far are massively underperforming. Everyone expected them to do well. The expected goals says they should be doing well, but it's not clicking, is it? They're conceding more than they should and scoring less than they should. Results like the 0-0 against Rotherham, the 3-2 defeat to Cardiff, that's going to pile the pressure, and they need to turn it around soon, because I think Chris Wilder and the squad they've got is capable, but the longer this bad start continues, they'll know the less chance they have of actually getting into the mix this season. So based on their start so far, I think Middlesbrough could be playing catch-up in the second half of the season, but I still think they could be in the argument. Next up, we'll move on to the playoff mix. I'm going to start with Luton. I like Luton. I think they'll be there and thereabouts again. I think a lot of people after last season were like, surely they can't do it again. I think they could. I think at least top 8 for me. Wouldn't rule them out of top 6. I think the thing is with Luton as well, they're another team that once they get going, they'll be really strong. There's just something really solid and strong at the core of that team and that club at the moment, with Nathan Jones, the players they've got, recent performances. I watched them against Coventry, maybe could have snatched that. Against Blackburn they looked good. I think they'll get going as the season goes on. Carlton Morris looks like a beast. I think they'll be in that conversation again. I'd love to see Luton get up there again. Next up, I'll go for Sunderland. I think Sunderland, I thought, would be the best performer of the newly promoted teams, and so far that's ringing true. Not to take anything away from Wigan and Rotherham, who look good so far, but Sunderland do look like a team that want to be in that conversation. They look hungry for it. You can see the fans have been starved of Championship football. Tony Mowbray's a very good manager. I don't know what to expect in terms of if he's going to do what he's done at previous clubs where he starts really well and then they fall away. But with Ross Stewart, with a decent back line, I think Sunderland will be in the top 10, and I wouldn't rule them out of the top 6. They're in the top 6 at the moment. Can they hang on in there, though? Next up, I'll go for Bristol City. I like Bristol City and what they've been doing so far. Bit of a surprise for me. I thought they might improve a little bit on last season, but do you know what? They're doing really, really well at home, and to be honest, even on the road, they're picking up some really good results. I think the squad looks good there. Nahki Wells looks like he's going to bag a few goals this season. I think Bristol City won't be too far away from the playoffs for most of the season. It's just about keeping within touching distance. As I said earlier, if Bristol City are still in the top 10 come March, they'll really fancy their chances and probably give it a good go as they go into the homeward stretch. So I think with their manager, who knows this division, can they stay within touching distance? I think so. It's good to see Bristol City on the up. Next up, I'm going to go for Queen's Park Rangers. Another team, they've probably surprised me a bit as well. I thought after last season they might repeat it, maybe around 11th or 10th again. They are above that at the moment. The expected goal says they could be a little bit lower, so maybe slightly overperforming in terms of they're taking their chances when they come. But that's not to take anything away from them. They've obviously got quality going forwards and they're doing all right at the back. So QPR are in the conversation. I wouldn't rule them out of making the playoffs. Maybe on the outside of the argument, but I wouldn't rule them out of it. They're in the mix at the moment. And with the new manager, they look quite good. The last team I'm going to put in the playoff mix is West Bromwich Albion. Similar to Middlesbrough, they are expected to do better. The XG says they should be doing better, but they're down in the bottom 5. Now, I think West Brom will turn it around. I don't really know what to put it down to at the moment because they're playing like a top 3 or 4 team. They're just drawing a lot. In most games, they're creating good chances and could be winning them. I feel like after this international break, things have got to fall into place. Otherwise, Steve Bruce will come under immense pressure because a team like West Brom should not be down in 20th or 21st place. I think West Brom will turn it around. This bad start, though, could affect them come the end of the season. I still think they'll make the top 10 at least. The squad and the quality they've got, they could do it. I wouldn't rule them out of it. So then, I've got 4 teams in my top 4. I'll do it in reverse order. I'll start with Watford, who are, out of the newly promoted teams, the lowest at the moment. But the squad and the quality they've got there just makes me think they won't be too far away from that top 5 or top 4 come the end of the season. Based on their start so far, they're not really looking like a top 2 team, so they're not even in the top 6 at this point, so it is a bit disappointing, especially the last couple of results. Did watch them against Blackburn and thought they were pretty poor. They did only manage a draw against Sunderland, but created some good chances. I think they'll be alright. I think it's the front line. If they keep them injury-free, they should at least make the playoffs. Next up, I'm going to go for Burnley. Burnley are looking good. I like the way they're playing football now. I think under Vincent Kompany, Burnley look quite a decent prospect. Yes, some games have been too open. They probably should be putting some of the games they've drawn to bed. But I still think they've got enough quality to maintain a top 4 finish. I think they're probably the best threat to the top 2 at the moment. So I'm going to put Burnley in around 3rd place. If you're a Burnley fan, what do you think? So then the top 2 are the top 2 I actually predicted from the start of the season. Norwich in 2nd, and I'll stick Sheffield United in 1st. That is how I predicted it from the start of the season, and so far those 2 are living up to what I thought. Sheffield United looking so good. Since the first game of the season, they've looked incredible. They've looked really, really good, winning some games where maybe they could have drawn, so they're showing a good resilience. The back line looks solid, look great at home, and yeah, they've got the quality to go and win games, even when, like I say, it could be a draw. That's the sign of a team that's going up for me, and sometimes they're just blowing teams apart. I think Sheffield United look the real deal. As for Norwich City, you know what to expect from them in the Championship. Yes, it's not the same. They've got a different manager and a slightly different squad to last time, but I still think they look the real deal as well. They're grinding out the wins now. After a bit of a wobbly start, I think Norwich won't fall out of the top 6 for the rest of the season, and I still fancy them for the top 2. So then, guys, that wraps up my predictions come the end of the season based on what I think on the 21st of September. We will see how many of these are right or wrong. Let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.